want to call our committee meeting to order for July 13, 2022, White County Board of Education. We have a fair amount of work to get through as far as committee goes. I want to appreciate Mr. McDonald for walking through this last month in our both committee and our full board, so appreciate that. Appreciate y'all's patience for me being able to join remotely. So as tonight in our meeting, we will be looking at the, on our agenda, we'll be looking to adopt modifications to policy based on TSBA recommendation from the legislation that was last legislative session. These laws will be going into effect, will be affecting us as they went into effect on July 1st. So working just to try to make sure we're in compliance policy-wise with that legislation that has passed. Again, to reiterate what I mentioned in the meeting last month, policy, there seemed to be a lot of maintenance from a policy standpoint, meaning that it was maintenance going in and adding a few things that where the law was going in and just clarifying, or as things change over time, updating so it's relevant to what's taking place in the environment today. So asked you last week to be sure to review those, sent out correspondence this week to look these over, and so that way if there's any that we need to spend more time on than others, we can do that. But there are, again, like I said, several policies where there are minor changes. So we'll start, and in your Google Drive, you can flip through these policies as we look through them. The revisions, we tried to make sure that we got revisions in policy highlighted in yellow where there would be an addition. Tried to use the strike through when things were being omitted, and then again highlighting what it was being changed to. Where that comes into play, primarily what I've noticed is it came in a little bit more into play when it talked about our utilization of retired teachers for their service is in rehiring, but we'll get through that. But my intent is tonight, let's go through and make sure we put our eyes on these policies and note the highlights. If there's anything that we want to say we might need to pause, come back to, let's make a note of that, but let's try to get through these policies and just make sure everybody's put their eyes on these and understands what changes are and what's being presented. So first start with policy 1102. That is board members. You see on page 1, highlighted there, adding high school equivalency credential. We don't know what high school equivalency credential is because it hasn't really been defined by the state, but we will have that in policy, and that will comply with what came out of legislation. Move on to policy number.
Yes, Senator. On that, with the qualifications, would the high school equivalency not be the same as a GED? I mean, or is that, are we just waiting on the state to tell us what that is?
Mr. Dean can speak to that. Let you speak to
so they've changed, GED is now called HiSET, and so that was originally in the language of this bill. So that is what that's what we're going to use as HiSET right now. But the state board was supposed to come out with definitions of what other high school equivalency credentials might be. But for right now, for our purposes, the only thing we have in play is the HiSET, which it was the GED.
So what, I guess my second part of that question would be, since there are so many students now who are homeschooled, maybe going through a program program such as the Peachtree in Cookville or other place like that, is that what we're waiting on them is to give that? I mean, because that's a high school diploma, if I'm not mistaken. Is there an accredited, educational institution, right?
Yeah, if it's approved by the state board, then we would accept it under this policy.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Move on to policy 1106. 1106, regarding code of ethics. The revision there, update is there, the board chair will be the one that will serve as the point of contact for the Tennessee Ethics Commission. So that's, this policy revision is defining that point of contact for the Tennessee Ethics Commission. If I'm not mistaken, the director or somebody is supposed to notify the state of who that is on an annual basis. And it has 30 days to make that notification. Let's move on to policy 1400, school board meetings. There is highlighted language in there talking about period of sickness or period of convalescence. In the event that someone was, say, confined to their home for an extended period of time for recovery, they would be able to participate electronically up to 3 times a year. And then also there's language in there regarding inclement weather or natural disaster. Again, giving members the opportunity to participate electronically for those reasons. If you are looking through your files, we had in there, and I think this was from previous meeting, example of appeals to the board, the Metropolitan Nashville Board of Education, their version of 1401 is a point of reference. Policy number 1402, notifications of meetings. Did not highlight this and go back and verify the note, but the reference of that is that notifications of meetings are to be provided to give adequate public notice, and special board meetings. Only exception is for meetings to be in case of emergency, and that's identified in paragraph 4. And then the notice of meetings where there's actionable items taking place shall be informed how the community can participate in public comment. And what we're adding there is the reference to policy 1404, which is that's the instructions for how the public comments can be made at a board meeting. Because it is law that boards have to allow for a point on the agenda when there is actual items on the agenda for board meetings that we allow for public comment. We have been doing that. We adopted that sometime in the past couple of years, and so we're already doing that. So that's not a big effect for us. But this policy updating it so give reference to where, so the public know how those comments can be made. Mr. Howard.
See, I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, are we on 1404 now?
No, I'm coming up to 1404. That was, I was looking at 1402, which is the modification there is where we reference the instructions.
One more question, please. Is this the time that we're taking suggestions of changes?
Let's go through and look at the modifications first, and if you would make a note, so that way we can try to, and some of these are very clerical in nature, so we can get those out. So again, board members, let me revisit this. If there's something you want to come back to, make a note of it. But let's get some of these shouldn't require much discussion. Then we get to, yes, Mr. Howard, the next one's 1404. What we have, done then is we have set times for public comment, for speakers and for the comment period. And then in addition to that, for adding items to agenda, making sure that we clarify the time frame for having that information to the director before the meeting, have that as 7 days. And then again, recognizing the public is on a 5-minute span to allow them to present their subject matter to the board. To continue on, the next one is policy 3202. And modifications to this policy come to annual drills. Obviously, we have various drills that take place throughout the year. And I know that in previous years, come up through the board that we've talked about here, our staff have been working with local officials for various threats that may come up. But we are putting in policy that now our annual drills will include armed intruder drill in coordination with law enforcement, incidents command drill, and emergency safety bus drill. So those would be added to the various drills that we will be responsible for throughout the year, and always do seem to make sense that we're making that we're letting the public know in policy, but appreciate staff for making sure that those things are being looked at. Along with this is a new policy 3204, and in policy that we will have a threat assessment team, and with that threat assessment team with on being created, the director will oversee that, as does other teams throughout and boards through the district. But that team meeting, those meetings will be closed to the public as it should be, and then they will document that that documents will not be open for public inspection as logic would lead us to understand. So that policy would be the new policy. See there were revisions suggested.
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir. One thing I can see in that I like is the fact that this board will be, a report will be given to this board, before each board meeting. And I think that's a great thing that they keep us informed on the threat assessment thing, because we all know that the threats are imminent everywhere now. And, I appreciate, that board, or that team being transparent enough to be able to report to this board to let us know, what they find before each meeting that we come into.
Yes, I would agree with that. We as a board should be informed on that, and that their reporting will just be a matter of making that happen. So obviously we have to be respectful of the nature of the information that we receiving from that. Next policy is 3205, and this just addresses the outside of regular school hours as far as safety and locking facilities, and that a school district employee will be responsible to station by the door to monitor the access and limit that to authorized personnel or those that have been granted permission to come in. Again, that's just refined to the existing policy that we have in place. Summer instructional programs, the director is noted in policy circulated some programming plan to the board each year, and it's been designated that that takes place, this we're informed that, by the last day of May, and, you can see that, don't think, as far as the criteria that's listed, there's no changes there. The attendance requirements, also where, some modifications are made. And then this also gets into, third grade promotion, fourth grade promotion retention, and discussing some of the details of how that would be, as far as days, allowed days missed, and, how options for makeup on that, and then also, how the parents will be communicated with, regarding that policy and progression on that. Moving on to, 4300, um, so, the board, here is noting how the board, will be responsible for, approving, the creation of various new programs, and that the principal established that the schools will be the one that sets the parameters, on the programs regarding states, interest, resources, things of that nature. But there is, or will have a, responsibility of approving those. The one thing, that you'll notice here that, regarding student clubs and organizations is the requirement that, for those participants under the age of 18, that, they are, sign a statement from a parent or guardian for joining a club or organization. This is, referred to as an opt-in, for these, so that way it would be, assumed that, being allowed to participate with consent of the respective, guardian or parent. So that would be that is, modification to the extracurricular activities policies. Library materials, we designate here the school librarian is responsible for, library collection development. And in this policy, as you see here, it's, basically outlining the tiers, for addressing, complaints,
let's say something happened at band camp, I mean, that's a school-related activity, would that be in something like this, a threat of mass violence, if it happened at an event outside of school property?
Yes, I imagine in that sense, that could be seen as a school event, and if a school-sponsored event, so you could threaten mass violence in any of those, and we would take that appropriate action.
Perfect, thank you.
So, moving on, and this is policy 6314, where regarding the board authorizing the director of school to determine whether corporal punishment shall be administered, and it's expanded on the guidelines that would apply to if it is administered. And you can see in that there has been four items that have been added regarding that have to be considered before corporal punishment will be administered, and that has to be documented. And then also, as far as the administrators of the punishment, it's restricted to principals, assistant principals, and teachers, and they have to be approved and authorized to administer that punishment. So it does put constraints on that as far as not just allowing anybody to administer that, but it does allow structure to how that's carried out. And next is policy 6319. Is highlighted in your in the policy, the revision. This regarding alternative school or short-term school program, that given the option that it could be located at a regular school, or it could be in a self-contained program within a school. And regarding our district, our alternative school is located off campus, and that's located here at the Board of Education office in our campus here. So by next is not done yet. Policy 6402. If you recall, regarding extracurricular activities, we're requiring now for participants to opt in before participation. In this policy 6302, it gives parents or guardians the right to excuse their student participating in health screenings, but that has to be done, submitted in writing, but they would be able, in this case, to opt out of our physical examination and immunization policies. So that gives them the right to do that if they so choose. Next would be revision to policy 64001 regarding surveys, analysis, evaluations administered to students under 18. That the parent or guardian would have to provide written or informed or voluntary signed consent for them to participate in that. Of course, just like other policies, students over the age of 18, they would have to provide that consent in writing themselves. But basically, this is a safeguard just to make sure that those who are participating in those type of activities, that we are getting their consent to do so.
That one, you don't need to do that again. That was in there from last time. Those are your items.
So okay. So if my count's correct, I think that goes through, and we have that reviewed the revisions to those policies. So now, as we've gone through those and you've had the chance to make note Are there any policies that you feel we need to go back and take a look at this time? Mr. Howard?
I've got a bunch.
You got a phone?
Yeah.
Mine will be quick.
All right, well, then we'll go quick, Mr. Hickey.
So I just had a question, as far as the, employment of retirees, I mean, there's just a lot in there, and I know we're taking some out. But is this something we do a lot, or, I guess, Mr. D, how does that actually work, and do we actually need to do it?
So mainly our retirees serve as long-term substitutes when they do maternity leaves, medical leaves, things like that. We currently fortunately don't have any vacancies in which we need to bring in retired teachers for full-time teaching positions. So, but this allows us to do that if necessary. So again, fortunately, White County's been able to find good talent and fill our vacancies, and so we don't have that need. But most of these, where it would play in is, say, a retired teacher took a leave and met up to their quota of days. This will allow us to employ them a little longer than we have in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to 1.400, the additions to, I believe it is electronic attendance. Did it still involve all the work, and or is it just for sickness now? Was the addendum added to it all that there was, or was the work related?
So, no, Mr. Howard, all that's in that's not highlighted in yellow, that was in policy, previous policy. But the changes were that I think that stemmed from legislation where there's somebody serving on a school board, and they end up having to I guess, be homebound for a period of time, but they did feel like they could serve from that position. But they are now, at least through state is allowing that to be one of the reasons which you could participate electronically if you were, say, homebound for certain reasons. And then also inclement weather, natural disaster, same thing. So they basically just added those two in there, in addition to what's already on.
Okay. Moving on, 1.404, there's a line in there, I think it's about paragraph 2. It says, the total public comment period shall be no more than 30 minutes. Can we strike that 30 minutes?
We could put it at an hour and 30 minutes. We could put it at 3 hours, or we could put it at nothing. I don't think there's anything that says we have to have a specific set amount of time. I think we should be conscious of the fact that public comment is important. There are certainly other items of business that we have to address, and we only have a limited amount of time given the fact we meet once a month. So, but that could be something that we have latitude on that to say what that time is.
Whether we need a motion now, or we just taking comments?
I would say we take comments, and then if we want to pull that out and discuss that separately, if that's one that we want to address a little bit more detail, we can pull that out in the regular meeting and have that discussion.
One more
Because we
item.
can take action on that then.
Thank you. One more item on 1.404. It is chairman's discretion to allow the extending time. Is there any wording or verbiage in there where you can add to where a board member requests? And we can't override the chairman unless it goes call for a vote, and just request for additional time. Because one board member may say, hey, that's an interesting topic right there. We may be voting on this next week, next month, next year, whatever. I'd like to hear more about it. And that was the first reason I asked for that to be considered we need to bring 1.404 also. Okay, moving on, this is just comment time, and I've got to be quick. 4.204, where the opting out, by request of, I forget what it was, testing or medical examination now, or there may be two separate policies about that.
Sorry, Mr. Howard, what policy did you say?
4.204.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misheard you there. 4.204?
Yeah.
That's it.
Once they opt out, do they have an option to opt back in?
Hold on, Mr. Howard, let's make sure, because I'm not sure if that's the correct policy.
Okay.
We'll get there.
That's one I wrote down.
4.204 is summer instructional programs. Is that the one you're looking for, Mr. Howard?
No, sir.
The immunization policy, I know what you're referring to. Just trying to figure out where we get to it.
That's 6.402.
6.402, thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
that's where I'm at.
I got close. If my memory's correct now, and maybe correct me on that, once they opt out, do they have an option to opt back in during the time frame or not?
Yes, that's not, if you don't mind me speaking,
No, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. I mean, that's not written in the language, but obviously if a parent wanted to opt back in, we would obviously allow them to do that, so that's a parent's discretion.
There's one on curriculum also, I believe, similar, and that may be the one that I was trying to write down and got the two confused together or something, of opting out. Can you refresh me on there was a couple in here where parents are now going to be required to opt out or opt in. And I guess what I'm just trying to say, once they do make that decision, do they come back later and say, hey, I
Sure.
changed my mind? Okay.
I think the opt-out, opt-in, scenario that you're describing would apply to anything where a parent or guardian has been given that option.
Okay.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Dean?
Yes, yeah, and that was addressing 6.4001 student surveys and evaluations. So they can opt out of those, and certainly they can opt back in.
And again, on that 6.4001, that policy as far as opting in, that, a scenario would be if somebody wanted to come in and do an evaluation or assessment on a group of students for whatever reason, that you don't just allow anyone to come in and start surveying students for their purposes without consent, so.
Please again, 4.403 on the library material. If this applies, I know we had questions about the written wisdom, the hatchet. Is there a time limit or frame set upon our review boards if the person started at point A and came all the way to school board members? Is there a time limit? Because I mean, if my memory serves me correctly, I mean, there may be something going on in October, and then it's December or January before it gets here, and of course, the curriculum's already passed it, and so, is that a normal time frame, or can there be established time frame for appellate board, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3?
Well, if you note in this process, and I think this is a process that this tiered system is not all that unique to us as a district on how we're handling appeals. But the tier 1, as you see within, if there's challenge material that's presented and the review committee, there's a 15-day window there for that to come together and for that review to take place upon receipt of the complaint. And so you're allowing time for that.
Is there a 15-day time period for each tier, each level, each one, or do we know?
It's not stated in policy, so the answer to that question would be no. The only time limit is there on that initial complaint to the committee. That's 15 days.
So if I could, Mr. Howard, I think what you're speaking to is that you were saying that if a complaint came in, if we go through this process, it might be 3-4 weeks before it's already been taught, before we've ever really addressed the issue. So my answer to that would be that we have published right now what the curricula are, and parents can look at that ahead of time so they can know what's coming before it even happens, and they can bring that to our attention if they have a concern. And they're always welcome to contact their teacher and say, you know, what's coming up and tell me about this story, so they can stay ahead of it in that regard. Because it is, to your point, by the time it goes through that process, it may have already been passed before it's been addressed. So there is not a 15-day time limit on each tier, and we would do it, we did in this past case faster than 15 days. We addressed it at the school level, but this is just spelling out that it goes from the school level to the director to the board in that order.
Okay. 5.106, for application and employment, we're talking about background checks to DCS for employment. Thank you for 5.106.
Correct.
Where we look at, we check with the Tennessee, does that cross-reference to any other state? I mean, can someone be guilty of something in another state and Tennessee knows about it, so we'll know about it in that state?
It does, and it's also just when we have record of someone being in another state, it brings our attention to look into that as well. But,
okay.
but the TAPS program does touch other states. So we get those all the time, and we get hits on things that happened in other states on employees.
That's a good answer. I like that. Okay, moving around the loop quickly, Mr. Chairman. 5.302, talking about sick leave and banking. This has been brought to my question here too. Can teachers designate bank? If they want to donate to that and they like say, you know, there's a teacher they like and they know they've got a serious illness and they've got it for a long time, can they donate designated bank to an individual? Or can that be possible?
No, they can't do that. They donate to the bank, and you have to be a member of the bank to partake of that ahead of time. So we would like to be able to do that. We've certainly had folks that have been through some extenuating circumstances, and people wanted to donate right to them, but that's not the way that sets up. You have to do that early on. You have to, at the beginning of the year, you have to opt into that program, and then you have to be a member of that program to participate. So we'd love to be able to do that, but that's not the way that works. The change here is just saying that you can use it for the sickness of a child now. Where before you couldn't use it, had to just be for yourself, and now you can use that for the sickness of a child.
Well, I just had more than one teacher say, well, hey, I belong to that if I could designate my time. You know?
Right.
Okay, didn't know whether we might have brainstorm and come up with a different policy.
Does that include spouse, just child, or the person, but not spouse, correct?
Does it include the spouse, care for a spouse? I believe it does, but I think they just added the language for child now as well.
6.202 for disciplinary actions down there, it says, the last line, retain a driver's license. Does that mean they could lose their driver's license, or does it give the possibility of not getting one? You know what that verbiage means?
What's the policy again? I'm sorry.
6.202.
The driver's license revocation. Student has more than 10 consecutive or 15 unexcused absences each semester shall be ineligible to retain driver's permit or license.
So is that, can they lose it if they get it, or can?
Yes, I believe that's true. I was just, my hesitation, I think there was also a stipulation there on grade performance, but I think they've eliminated that now, and it's just gone to attendance, but I believe you're correct. And it certainly, I know, can keep them. We've never issued for it to be revoked, because that wouldn't come from, we wouldn't revoke it, it would be the Department of Transportation, but it certainly would keep them from getting it in the first place. We're involved in that process quite often.
We would be the evidence of where that offense had taken place, but no, we're not in the business of revoking licenses. Thank goodness.
In 6.314, corporal punishment, was there any stipulation in there where we can override or parent, teachers, principals, or the director can override the parent if they don't want their child spanked?
No, parents have that ultimate decision, and that's actually on the registration form. They give us that permission. This is just spelling out some steps that need to happen now to make sure that they've gone through several steps before, that they're not, that's not the first cause of action, first choice. It never has been. In our district, it's used very sparingly anymore. It is only used by principals, or the only ones that are authorized to do so. And we were meeting most of these steps anyway. It's never the first choice. But this is just spelling those out, and yes, parents have the option to opt out of that for sure.
Okay, last one right here, Mr. Chairman, and this is backing up and wasn't discussed or anything changes that I remember, but on the agenda, 1.403 right there, in the first paragraph, executive committee board shall be responsible for developing an agenda of each board. Any board member may place items on the agenda for discussion, period. Do we follow that?
Where's evidence we have it?
1.403.
No, I know the policy, I mean, is there evidence that we have it?
Oh, yeah, I've been had several items I've requested to put on the agenda.
Okay, putting on the agenda or working into part of the agenda, I mean, that's, yeah, Mr. Howard, we've had a discussion before, and I'm not trying to be, negative about it. I do want, if the board member has something to put on the agenda, then, whether it's me as a chairman or someone else as a chairman, should try to put that on the agenda, but it may be that it's worked in an item where that's not the sole agenda item, but work it into the discussion, so that's.
Here's my question. Can a board member be denied put an item on the agenda?
So what policy?
1.403. In the first paragraph, second sentence, any board member may place items on the agenda for discussion. I'd just like to reach a consensus. Yeah, 1.403. It's on the bottom page of our, it's one of the next to the last page on
I got it right here.
policies on this website. It's next to the last one. Oh, it isn't now. Item number 17, approval of agenda.
So, paragraph 1 on policy 1403, statute committee of the board shall be responsible for developing an agenda for each board meeting. Any board member may place items on the agenda for discussion. Particular order may vary from meeting to meeting in keeping with the business at hand. So that's, so just speaking as a member, you know, the keeping with business at hand, obviously there are things that we have to do from meeting to meeting that we are responsible for taking care of. And so if there was an item that needed to be moved around, executive committee should have some latitude to do that. And I don't think that would be considered excluding an item from a board member to be placed on the agenda for discussion. Somebody else besides me and Mr. Howard might have an opinion on that.
So all I'm asking is, can a board member be denied putting an agenda, an item on the agenda for any meeting? Should they be able to be denied?
So, we can bring that up in committee next week, next month.
Very good.
It doesn't say they can, it doesn't say they can't.
Very good.
All right, anything
Ask
else?
for it on the agenda next month.
Pardon?
I asked that you put on the agenda for next month.
Okay, as a reminder, please send me a text or an email, so I won't forget. All right, so that's our policies. Those will be coming up for second reading tonight during the committee reports. Again, policies can be reviewed at any time, and to Mr. Howard's point, bring that to the chairman's, attention, and they will work it in the agenda. This time, I will, motion will, call the committee meeting to adjourn. So we'll take a quick break and we'll get into starting our regular board meeting here in just 1 minute.
Two questions.
White County Board of Education to order. This time I'd like to pledge to the flag, and if Mr. Howard, if you would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. This time I would like to welcome everyone here to our meeting tonight. Board members, members of the public, see we have staff here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest in the activities of White County Board of Education. White County Board of Education, under state law, we operate in public. We do our business in public per state law. We do have meeting policies and guidelines. Policy does allow for public comment. We post a sign-up sheet before each meeting, and if members of the public wish to speak, they can be recognized at that time of our agenda. This is the first meeting of our new school year 23-24. So we look forward to getting into the new year. I think we should thank staff and administrators and teachers and all those involved for completing 22-23 year, and best of luck to all those graduates who are moving on from our district to pursue other endeavors. As you see tonight, we have a fairly lengthy agenda with various approvals, touching up on things that we need to do as we start this new year. So at this time we'll get into that. But prior to doing that, at this time I'd like to ask that if there was any disclosures regarding conflict of interest be made at this time.
Mr. Chairman, as I do each and every meeting, I want to state that my wife is an employee of the district. The views and the comments that I will make tonight and the votes that I will make tonight are of the best interest of the district and are of my own opinion.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, I will state the same.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey.
Mr. Chairman, if I'll be allowed to use the same thing Mr. McDonald said to me, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
We may try to get that in written form so we can just read it every time.
Okay.
You do a great job. You do a great job.
I'll sign that test to you, Mr. McDonald, but let the minutes reflect that Mr. Hickey, Mr. Howard, and Mr. McDonald, spouses that work for the district, identified no conflicts of interest on the proposed agenda that's being presented tonight. Next item on our agenda is a consent agenda, which this month is just consists of one item, and that's the approval of the minutes that were held from the meeting on June 15th, 2023. Again, I appreciate Vice Chair McDonald covering that meeting in my absence. So this time, I seek a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. McDonald. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Haston. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just one clerical thing on the minutes of our board meeting for June 15th. Last item down there said what it said. Next meeting will be July the 14th. I need to correct that. Everybody wants to check up on us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. Let me note that adjustment to the announcements on our June board meeting minutes be reflected that we correct the date from July 14th stated to July 13th.
Thanks, sir.
So motion is second. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is approval of proposed coordinator's pay scale. As you recall, in our May meeting, we spent a lot of time, had discussion on adjusting and establishing pay scales throughout the district for various positions. teachers, administrators, and so forth. There are a few positions that were omitted unintentionally from that discussion, and we want to bring those up at this time. And they are, item 1 that we'll be addressing is a coordinator's pay scale. That is, you were presented with a salary schedule in your meeting packets, and this is a salary schedule for 222 days or 11 months, so it's the 11-month contract, correct, Mr. D? And so it starts out with the coordinators pay, with topping out at pay scale based on their level of education, 16 years.
Whose department would that be?
Currently, that's data, that's Darla Dunn's position, but we're setting up a pay scale so that when we have other coordinators moving in the future, that we have a pay scale established. So typically, we've looked at the definition. There's not a hard one as far as the delineation between, or differentiation between supervisors and coordinators, but coordinators generally don't supervise any people. They operate a program.
Thank you.
So did everyone get that clarification of the difference between what a coordinator does? There are some coordinators that oversee programs that don't have supervisory responsibilities, and there are others that specialists that do have supervisory responsibilities, and so there's a delineation between the two. So what the item on our agenda now we're looking at is salary schedule for a certified coordinator as was presented. So this time I would entertain a motion for approval of that coordinator's pay scale.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hickey, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on agenda number 8 is this will be the approval of the coordinator school health specialist pay scale. And this is different from nurses, and I'll let Mr. D explain to that. He's a little bit more versed on that than I am.
So there was information from the state as far as trying to tie nurses to very closely to teachers and teacher pay. Obviously, this person is the coordinator over the nurses, so it's a little bit different, a higher bump in pay for that position. But it was, I guess, across the state, there were a lot of folks that were being underpaid as professionals that were serving as nurses. So we worked with other districts to try and go with a pay scale that was certainly respected to teachers, but also showed a little increase for the supervisory role that they play in this coordinating position. So sets us up for future again, and all of these pay scales were the first attempt, I think a very good first attempt at increasing our pay for our faculty and staff, but all of them are subject to discussion this year. We'll study where we are this year in regards to our budget, but this is the one we'd like to propose right now for school health specialists at this time.
I guess one question I would have before we get any further, why are we topping it out at 20 years? I mean, are we doing that because most people will not stay in that role longer than 20 years?
We topped many of the administrative roles as that. And normally because you don't get into those roles until you've been in education for some time. So the teacher rolls out to 30 years because there's a lot in likelihood a lot of folks will retire as a teacher, but administratively you've been in the system for a while before you enter into administrative position.
Okay, any other questions?
I think so.
Move to adopt.
Okay, so at this time I have entertaining motion for approval of proposed coordinated school health specialist pay scale as presented. Is that you, Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, I move to
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McDonald. Have a second? Second by Ms. Haston. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is approval to add an additional SRO officer to White County High School. And just for a refresher, the state has made available funding for local law enforcement agencies to apply for grant funding to provide SROs for the various schools. So that takes budget pressure off our district. So what that does, it gives us the ability now that we could add an additional SRO officer to White County High School, which has been discussed for a period of time now. This would give us the opportunity to do that without much stress on our budget. So that's what is before us tonight, approval to add that additional SRO officer to White County High School. Before we get in for a motion, if there's any questions that you have, anyone might have for our director, we will do that at this time.
I do, Mr. Chairman. I know you said in our weekly email that we're losing an SRO at the middle school. Correct.
That's possible, very possible, that's not official.
And if that happens, this second SRO at the high school will go fill that position until we can get someone.
So just to clarify, we actually have the ability, the Sheriff's Department, we had a very good meeting, we signed our new SRO agreement for next year. We have the possibility of adding an SRO right now, which would give us 2 at the high school. Both males, we hopefully eventually to have a male and a female at high school level. If we lose one SRO, obviously one of those SROs will go to the middle school and fill in. We'll be back to 1 at every school, which we're not paying for. That's being paid for by the new grant. What I'm asking the board for tonight is permission to, if we find an extra SRO that's available, to go ahead and hire them using our funds, because they can only hire 1 per school based on the grant funding that they receive. So what I'm asking the board is to have blanket permission that at the time that we find that extra SRO, I can transfer funding that I have for, we have extra positions in our budget for, in case we need to add a teacher down the road, we have a few extra positions, just 2 or 3. But I can take one of those funding sources and move it over for an SRO. I just wanted to be able to jump when we get that opportunity rather than have to wait another month or 2 through that process. So in the event, what I'm asking tonight is in the event that we find that extra SRO, that we can use that money to transfer over and hire them. So we would have 1 on our payroll, all the others would be paid by the Sheriff's Department.
Any other questions for our director?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Are we hoping to see if we can find a female as a second SRO at the high school?
Yes, that's what I was just saying, and that's our desire, that's the SRO's desire, but it's just supply and demand right now, it's the issue.
Can we discuss what grant, was it the Sheriff's Department that filed the grant, and got a grant for SRO officer, or was it the school system?
It was the Sheriff's Department gets it. It was from the Department of Homeland Security. The governor issued it, but the money flows through the Department of Homeland Security and was paid directly to the Sheriff's Department.
How much will that help the school system?
Well, it's considerable. We had eight SROs on our payroll last year that now we are able to reallocate that money to other positions.
So Sheriff, that grant's gonna pay for all 8?
Correct.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Actually, we're hoping they actually have some money left over, so they're excited to be able to add some equipment, update some of their vehicles, some lots of different things that that we couldn't do because we were taking on all the burden and they didn't have the budget to do it. And now it's going to free them up to do some extras that they're excited about.
One last question, please. I know I've mentioned in the past for 2 substitutes for the Sheriff's Department for SRO officers be paid to go to their training. Was that put in our budget this year to pay for their training also?
For 2 substitutes?
Yeah.
No, now that all that training has gone over to the Sheriff's Department as far as, it's not in our budget, but it's in their budget to pay for their training. And they do have, we have 2 of the SROs are actually heading up the overseeing the SRO program. So.
Be a good opportunity to extend a hand here to say, hey, you're helping us, let's help you. I'd like to see those two attendants go also.
And can you remind me of what you wanted exactly?
The 2 substitutes, the Sheriff's Department provides, if I understand correctly, 2 substitutes available at any time one SRO couldn't show up to work that day.
That hasn't happened. That hasn't been the case. So,
Okay.
but that's something I've asked for, is that, I've had some non-negotiables that I asked, that was that, number one was that we always had an officer present. So, they assured me that they had opportunities to utilize some of these funds for overtime, to pay officers to come in the event that one of these SROs needs to be out, so that they'll come in and serve in that role, in the event of their absence.
Well, sometime or another, I just was asked to request for 2 substitutes to be paid to go to the training that they go to, whatever, once a year also. And, I don't think it's happened yet. Maybe we can discussion with this right here, whoever can cover it.
So it was my understanding from our meeting that we would be covered, based on the use of this funding. They did say if in some event that they ran out of money, we would discuss at that point if they ran out, but they said they did not run out of overtime money this year, and they didn't see those being a problem. But that was my number one priority, is that they cover our schools at all times, that we have an armed, trained officer in our buildings.
Just noted what I've been asked to pass forward, so
Thank
you take care of it. Great.
All right, so, discussion on the, item to, add an additional SRO officer to White County High School. Had the opportunity for discussion with our director, so, this time entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Ms. Hastings, do I have a second?
I second it.
Second by Ms. Stone. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is approval to redirect Ask the School Board link. So, some may recall, some of your members may not, but a few years ago, again, trying to provide a way to for the public to ask information or get information, that questions they might have for the district. We set up what's called the Ask the School Board link, and that was set up. But one thing that's happening, maybe that we're not aware of, is that so much as those inquiries are going straight to our director. They're not going to the school board, and the way this is set up and be perceived is that when you have a question, you can electronically, through this link, ask the school board. And if it's truly an Ask the School Board link, then it should be coming to the school board and not the director. That could be, if it did come to a point of contact with the school board that is monitoring that, that could be based on the district from where the question came from. It could be directed to the representative from that district. It could be a situation where if it comes in and it needs to be a question that we don't have the answer to, we could then in turn direct that to administration through the director. But the director has asked that he not be point of contact for this link, and I would present that to you members tonight to see, to get your thoughts on that, and if we need to make a change, we could go and take action on that tonight.
Well, I have a question on that one. Questions that you actually get on a link, are these the ones that are most of the time day-to-day questions that you would be answering anyway, that we have no idea what that is?
Yes. Unfortunately, yeah, and I do forward those to you. Everyone that comes in, I copy you on my response. And normally they are questions that are probably directed to me and not the school board. However, I want people to know that, as to Mr. Howard's point, or to the board's point last month, that I want people to know who they're talking to when they submit a question. So what I'm proposing is that when they click on Ask the School Board, it's going to go to the page that has all of your email addresses or phone numbers or whatever's on you've provided in the contact, and so that way they know who they're contacting. And if they do send a message about third grade that you don't know, then it's gonna promote conversation between us, because you're gonna forward that to me and say, hey, can you answer this for me? And I'm gonna, again, copy you on that response so you know it was responded. But I just think in full transparency that people know, they can email you at any time, but when they click on Ask the School Board, they're actually asking a school board member and not the director speaking for them.
Mr. Chairman, I really like that, the concept, the idea of this right here. I think as our civic duty as elected officials here, that we ought to be available to any question at any time, whether we know the answer or not. You know, I give this here in the head and look at a lot of questions, but I try to at least listen and try to find out an answer. So I'm highly in favor of this idea right here.
I guess my question for that would be, is it only going to you at this time?
Yes, I believe it just comes to me, and then every response, I copy the board.
Right, yeah, I see that, but why couldn't it still go to you, but also be copying us at the same time, as a carbon copy, for each member, that when they hit submit, why couldn't it go to all board members at that time?
It could, I think it might, in my mind, it's just gonna make it a little convoluted as to who's gonna answer that question and who are they really asking and, you know, who responded. I think if you click on that button and it goes to a list of your names and they're like, well, I don't wanna ask Adam Hickey that question, I really need to ask the director, then they're gonna email me. But if they do ask Adam Hickey and he knows the answer, he obviously can respond, but if he doesn't, he's gonna respond to me, and then I'm gonna copy so he knows to respond. And it also gives you the contact that you could follow up with that person and say, hey, did you get the answer that you?
So it's gonna be to the point where they can pick and choose, if they wanted to send it to myself, Ms. Fowler, Ms. Stone, and only us three, they could do that.
That's correct, but then they have that option now, but what's happening right now is it says ask the school board, and it's not really asking the school board, it's asking me. So I am more than happy to answer the questions that you don't know. I've been doing that all along, and I will still do that, but I think it's more genuine that they're addressing who they think they're addressing, and it also promotes conversation between the board and myself, that you know that your constituents are getting their answers.
I agree, because it may be something that pertains to their district.
I'll make another comment. Sure. Can we say on there no advertisements? Like our school email right here, you know, we out of every 15 we get
Yeah.
about.
They would have to deliberately click on, it would have to be, it wouldn't be, you know, a bot that would be sending you email. This is somebody who would have to genuinely click on this, click on your email, and then be delivered, sent.
I don't know how the others are generated, when you get in there and you got 5 pages and half of them are advertisements. I'd just rather stay there than on this website.
Okay, so good discussion. I think, one thing that we needs to be included in the motion. To Mr. D's point, if it's just a copy or a forward all email that's requested sent, then nobody has responsibility to answer it, and it has potential for an answer not to be given. We need to figure out the best way to get these to have a response, not necessarily an answer, but a response, acknowledgement of receipt. We could do that a couple of different ways, and it's entirely the board's discretion. It could be a single point going to a chairman, or for that matter, a designee. Or we could, as suggested by Mr. D, we could have that directed to individual school board members, or even technology. We could do that, click send to these members, or it could send to all members. I think in the event that it was a send all email, we should have clarification on who would respond to that if it was a send all and it wasn't evident what representative should be responding to that.
Would you agree? Make a motion, and if you agree with it.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we redirect the Ask the School Board link to include a drop down for all individual board members. And if they select all, that the chairman be the one to respond to all the board members and the question, that is being asked. And if it's directed to 2 or 3 members, then we reply all. If we don't know that, thank them for their concerns and their questions, and then we'll get back to them on a response if we don't know the answer to that. Was that okay with you, or is that?
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of
I
motions. So
You can modify that to say anything you want.
okay, so,
But a drop down like.
so,
I like the drop down.
all right, so we're getting into procedures, the mechanics of how this will work. So, Mr. McDonald, I'm going to, what I heard you say is that you would like, to ask the school board to go to the school board.
Correct.
And we would like the option, the public to be given the option to send it to all or send it to some. And if they can, and I think Ms. Russ could pull that off, and at that point in time, the asking is coming to members of the board.
Correct.
Do you see anything logistically wrong with that? Challenging?
What I was proposing was much simpler. I just want to take you to this page that has all of your web addresses, and then they would have to choose who they're sending it to. So it would just go to one. And now right now, they could copy all your addresses and send them multiple, but I think if you get, I think it complicates it, in my opinion, if you choose all, because like I said, then you gotta decide who's answering and did it get answered, and are they from all I'm proposing that it goes to this webpage, it already exists, it has your email, that they would click on your email and it would go directly to you, and then that way there's no confusion about who's supposed to answer. That was my suggestion.
Mr. Drummer, couldn't we do it just like you have each individual and then add one more tab up there that says send to all?
We could, but like I said, then you get into who's gonna answer that, that's fine, yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
That way they might send it to all, and then like you say, the chairman might address it, if it, but at least everybody on the board would see what the email was about.
I think my thought, and then I'll hush, but my thought was, if they send it just to District 6, they're talking to their school board member and we're promoting that. And then, then if you don't have the answer, you're talking to me and we're promoting that conversation. That was my thought about keeping it individualized, but I'll be glad to do whatever the board desires.
Mr. Chairman, if I just add my 2 cents, hopefully the last 2 cents, I like Mr. D's simplicity. Jerry has a good idea right there too, but I just like to say, hey, let's address it individually. We can update it, we can change it later. If we want to implement this and see how it gets done.
Okay, so
Here you go, I'm gonna simplify this for you. I'm gonna pull my motion back, I'm gonna rescind my motion. All right. And I'm going to make a motion to, go with the most simplest form of providing the link to send to the school board members' email addresses, and they can choose who they want to send it to.
okay, I have a motion that the Ask the School Board link be directed to, the, individual, members of which the, applicant is wanting to send to board members. So it'd be going to one individual specifically. Keep it simple. So I have a motion from Mr. McDonald. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by, because of the enthusiasm, we're going with Mr. Hickey. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is approval of volunteer coaches. We have 3 volunteer coaches that will be presented to us tonight. One is a late addition, Amanda Dodson. But these are volunteer coaches are Ashlyn Phillips for White County Softball, Leah Mulliken for Northfield Cheerleading, and Amanda Dodson for White County High School Volleyball. As all volunteers are presented to us after they go through the presentation to the administration, they just come to us for approval, and volunteers do have to go through the background screening. So this time, and
Miss Kim's over there.
So has background, okay, so, would that be Ms. Phillips and Ms. Malkin? Okay, so Phillips and Dotson are scheduled, Malkin's not, but we haven't got responses back for any of the three. So,
Correct, and so none of them will be eligible to work with students until their background comes back successful.
okay, so the motion will be pending background approval, that we approve the volunteer coaches for, as noted on our agenda. So this time I would entertain a motion for approval.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Howard, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Stone, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is approval of the bid for the White County High School softball hitting facility. This was a project that's been discussed, was sent out for bid. You have received the information on the winning bidder and the cost for this facility. Also upon the request by Ms. Stone, you have provided electronic and also paper copies of the sports practice facility that was designed for bid. And so we will at this time go into considering the approval of the bid that was received for the softball facility.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, it says, sports practice facility, is this specifically for softball, or can it be for baseball, or any kind of indoor sports, or is it specifically for softball?
That sports practice facility is what Upland Design Group termed it as, but this facility would be, this facility would be for the White County High School softball team.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. So the size of this, can you compare it to the one we've got at the football field, please?
Much smaller. It's very similar to the size we have at the baseball field. It's very similar. We wanted to provide our female athletes with the same amenities that our male athletes have. So it's very similar in construction and size to the baseball hitting facility.
Is this one gonna have restroom facilities for the men's room, doesn't for the men, the baseball team doesn't?
It will have one bathroom, one single-use bathroom. It'll have a 10-foot slab at one end, and then the rest will be artificial turf. Pretty minimal HVAC and roll-up door. So very similar in many regards to the baseball facility.
So do we have anything showing us how the bid breaks up, so we know what the building's gonna cost, what the plumbing's gonna cost, what the dirt work's gonna cost?
We don't have it broken down by that. We have the overall amount, and then you have the 3 bid totals that came in. So we don't have it broken down into electric and HVAC and civil and those sorts of things. It's not broken down like that.
So just out of curiosity, what did it cost to build the one at the baseball field, if we're kind of comparing here? And I know there's a few years difference.
Yeah, there's no
but
comparison. I mean, that was a lot of private donor money that was done for that one, and it's just, there's no comparison anymore to what was done just a handful of years ago. We mentioned buses, just an example. A bus that 5 years ago we paid $96,000 for, we're paying $130,000 for right now.
Oh,
So, just, you've been to the grocery store. So, yeah, it would be really impossible to compare the two. But you're really just looking at square footage. I don't know if we had a square footage construction cost on this, but that would be the closest thing that we could do as far as just to give you an idea of where our prices are right now.
Mr. Chairman, on this, thing over here, it says $50 a yard for one bid, $35 a yard for another. Is that concrete, or is that the square footage of the building?
That is when they have to bring in additional soils and do the leveling and things. If they have to bring in extra earthwork, that's how much per yard that they'll charge to do the additional.
Yeah, I didn't understand what that was.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions here. Is this gonna be where the, old pavilion?
It'll actually be where the volleyball court is, the old volleyball court, so it's next to that, but between the pavilion and the guardrail there, where the horseshoe pits were, and the old volleyball court, that's where this will be located. And it's being built in such a way that we hope that in the future, the county government will install some bathrooms that will serve the tennis courts and the basketball courts, which technically the county owns. And so we hope that we can have some bathrooms built there that will serve those courts, and then they'll tie into our plumbing on this bathroom that's being put in this facility.
We got sort of go on with what Ms. Stone said right here. As far as the winning bidder right there had a $50 per yard charge, and the second one came in at a higher total, but had a $35 per yard. So, you know, with just those two figures showing right there, that's just dirt.
That's correct. That's deals with the civil that they do is how much dirt they may have to bring in, or if they found unsuitable soils and they have to bring in additional dirt. It's usually respective. If you have a higher bid, you'll have a lower cubic cost for dirt, and vice versa. So you can see is, you know, the highest bid had a lower cost for dirt. It's not necessarily that follows that line, but it's customary that you would see that change.
Okay.
Our hope is that we won't have a lot of unsuitable soil and that won't come into play.
Okay, thank you.
When you look at the bid tab, you note that it's broken down. We're identifying those that are handling plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, and the masonry. So the low bidder, FTN Contracting, the low bidder, they're subcontractors for the plumbing. Stone Service Corporation for plumbing and HVAC. The electrical is Brickhouse Electrical LLC, and then FMT Contracting is taking care of the masonry requirements, and then also the rest of the
Have we
construction.
used any of those contractors before, or do you know what you did?
W. Yes, we're currently, W&O is doing the Bondycroft edition. We use Sergio many times. And then we've used FTM in the past, but it's been, the county has, that's correct. Yeah, the county has used FTM in the past.
So what we're saying is they use it what? You're agree with their work? Which one? Okay.
Has this money already been allocated to this year's budget?
So how much did we put, 300,000 for this particular project? We have more than that in capital outlay. This particular project was 300,000. So the proposal then would be to do a budget amendment to pull that from fund balance, the difference, to make this project.
That will be this year, be finished this year?
Yes, if we get approval, they thought that they could get it done by the season, by the spring season.
So that was my next question.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's not a huge project, it's just, but it is expensive as everything is right now.
Mr. Chairman, so the White County school system will actually own this part because it's going to be built in the hospital. Now, the baseball field and the building, we do not own, correct?
No,
We do not.
We do.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, when could we provide them with a bathroom? Was there money in the budget for the bathroom at that facility?
There is, but they have bathrooms, you know, in the concession facility, there at the field, as they do at the softball field too, but that was built long ago, and again, with donor funds mostly, this is an opportunity for us to add similar facilities for the girls team.
I'm not trying to speak, I think Ms. Stone, what she might be saying, hey, the boys will see, wow, what a nice facility the girls got, when are we gonna get some?
But there's an upgrade.
Well, they're going to be very similar. Like I said, what originally was proposed by the architects was a facility similar to the fitness center, the Donahue Fitness Center, which is a whole different ballpark as far as money and expense. So this is almost like a pole barn, so to speak. You know, covered aesthetically nice with metal, made to look a little better, but a very nice pole barn. But but it's very simplified from what the original plan was. So it's going to be very, very similar, with the exception of that one single-use bathroom. It's going to be almost identical to what the baseball team has.
Where have the girls been practicing?
They use the old Finley gym quite a bit right now. They have a hitting net that we've installed in there and screens, and so they use this gymnasium right now when they come indoors.
Before Finley,
Old Mills.
that's what I thought, thank you.
I make a motion to approve, the bid for White Castle softball facility.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McDonald to approve the bid for the building of the White County High School softball facility. Have a second by Ms. Hasty. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is our district update. That will be coming from Mr. Trumbarger.
All right, I will speak fast. Personnel reports are in your folders. Almost all the open certified positions are filled for this coming year, so we're in really good shape comparatively to other districts in the neighborhood. As far as safety is concerned, we received additional safety funds from the state this year, and we are currently prioritizing our needs. We, as the board knows, we spent a lot of time and effort on safety last year, and it will always be a top priority, and certainly will be as we enter into 23-24. We're also awaiting results of our application for a safety grant that would provide a significant amount of money and additional funding that's going to further enhance the safety in our district. Academically, test score data from last year is slowly trickling in, although the bulk of this data is not expected until this fall. Currently, a lot of that data is embargoed from the states, but as it becomes released, we release that out to the public. Our curriculum leaders are meeting with state specialists in the coming days. We'll be assessing and dissecting our data. Athletics summer practice is back on after the dead period. Volleyball, soccer, and football have games as soon as school begins, and other sports are in summer practice mode as well. Bondycroft project, foundation and parking lot work continues. The immediate goal is to resurface the parking lot so that school may begin on time, and we believe that's non-negotiable, so that will happen. WCHS, there's drainage tiles going in. You may see the city is digging up Allen Drive right in front of the high school. They're fixing an age-old problem of that ditch that goes down through there, so they're putting tile all the way across that, filling it over, so we're excited about that. No more hazards of cars going off into that ditch and our roadway eroding, so thank you to the city for fixing that. Principals and supervisors report on July 28th for administrative meeting, and teachers report officially on July 31st, although they're already showing up in their classrooms and getting ready for the next school year. With that being said, this completes my director's report. I'll be glad to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. D. Any questions for our director? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, and that's budget amendments and transfers. Included in your packet for tonight's meeting were proposed budget amendments, transfers, and this is regarding Federal Fund 142, Subfund 951, and this is summer literacy training stipend. And these transfers do apply to the proposed budget for 23-24. So for this calendar year, there's 3 budget items in there, and so that's what's been presented to us tonight. I'll let Mr. D can speak to the specifics of where that money's going, but from indication it's taking money from the grant and then applying it specifically to the various salaries and wages that expenditures that we have for those programs. But Mr. D can speak to that more in detail.
Yes, just quickly, Federal Fund 142, this is Subfund 951, $41,000 in grant funds that's going to pay for our teachers that attended early literacy training. They receive $1,000 for attending that summertime training, and so that's where those funds will go to pay for those salaries and wages for those pre-K through 12 teachers. Fund 142, this is CTE Perkins Basic Funds. We received $13,909 in grant funds that will go to other materials and supplies for the CTE program. And then finally, Subfund 901, $6,000, and this came in for going to contracted services. This is going to pay for a program that will help our teachers to write their goals for their individual education programs. So to help them with our IEP, individual education programs that our teachers are writing, to give them support and guidance there. And those are the budget amendments for this month.
Okay, so budget amendments and transfers that we have for us this month. So this time I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Howard, do I have a second? Second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is public comment. We have no public comment that was submitted for our agenda, and we have no one who has signed up for tonight's meeting. So that takes us into the next item on our agenda, and that is our committee reports. And we'll start with policy. Policy committee met tonight at 5 o'clock. We reviewed 27 policies that have been recommended by TSBA based upon legislation that has passed in the prior year's legislative session. As we discussed through those policies, we went through, seems that there may be one that would require a little bit more discussion. So if anybody would like to make note of a policy that you want to bring forward for further discussion at this portion of the meeting, please do let me know which one that would be. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't really know what you're asking for. Are we fixing to vote on these to approve them?
Correct. Second reading. Because these policies, as a reminder, these are the policies that were presented last month with the modifications that will be taking place. Those were approved for first reading. We had a committee report this evening for discussion on those. And if there are no policies that you want to pull out, then we need to go on and adopt these so we can have these in place. Adopting a policy does not mean that that cannot be come back and revisited. But in the majority of these policies, they were additions that legislation made to existing policies that were in place, wording, things of that nature. So there's some of those that shouldn't require much discussion. But that's the reason why I'm saying tonight, if there's a policy for what was discussed in committee that you want to pull out for further discussion, we can do that. We could discuss it now, or we could add it to new business, but for policies that everybody is in agreement on, then we should go on and adopt those for second reading.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is including policy 1.404, about 30 minutes.
That's what I was alluding to, Mr. Howard. If you want to pull that out, then let that be known.
I'd like to pull it out.
Okay, so we're going to pull out policy 1404 for further discussion. Does anybody else have a policy that was on our list for adoption that you wanted to discuss or wanted to pull out for further discussion? Okay, if not, let the minutes show that we're going to pull out 1404. Do you want to discuss that in policy at this point of our meeting, or do you want to add that to new business? Mr. Howard, I give you discretion on that.
Whichever one will allow me to make a motion and keep it passed, or be defeated.
Okay, if it pleases the board, I'm going to just put that down to new business. So. Is everybody okay with that? Nod head? Okay. So we're going to pull out 1404 and move that down for discussion in new business. So that means that the remaining policies, and I will someone else go through them. note all these policies.
Okay, so you've addressed them, and
Okay.
they don't have to think something.
So, we addressed these policies in committee, so we pulled out one that we wanted to have further discussion on. So, coming out of committee, does not need a motion or a second, so, this time we will vote for approval. So all those, in favor of approving the policies from the, presented from our committee meeting with the exception of policy 1404, please signify the same aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is maintenance committee report, so that would be Ms. Stone.
There's gonna be 2 new school zone signs installed at the middle school. The library unit at the high school has been installed already. CHC has installed 5 new rooftop units at Northfield and 1 at the high school. This is from contingency funds from the gym AC units. Bonnycroft construction continues to progress. Woodland Park restroom project is stalled at this time because they're waiting on parts. Dole exterior lighting is being addressed and adding more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone, for that report. Next item is school improvement. That would be Ms. Hastings.
The Bonnycroft building project continues to progress. New steps and ramps at the existing entrance are near completion. Working to get the parking lot ready for parents and buses. The hallways are been buzzing with eager teachers preparing for students, excited for another great school year. Castle, our school building, is shaking up beautifully thanks to the hard work of our custodians. Our teachers have already been working to get their classrooms ready for the new school year. We are excited for August. Teachers are already preparing for the upcoming school year in Dole, excited to see our students and meet new ones. Finally, there's many teachers that have been already at the school getting prepared for the beginning of the 23-24 school year, and we're looking forward to another great school year. Northfield School is just around the corner, and teachers are getting ready for the new school year. Woodland Park, it is amazing to see all the teachers preparing their classes for a brand new school year. Many small faces are eager to get started. White County Middle School, our teachers are meeting, training, and relaxing as we get ready to open the 23-24 school year. Our floors look great, our classrooms are being prepared to welcome students back. The excitement builds as the 23-24 school year draws near. Thank you everyone for making White County such a great place to work. At White County High School, we're looking forward to welcoming our new staff and students for the year. We've had a great summer, and our students have been working hard in their own time. We had several to take and retake the ACT this summer. One student gained 4 points, another scored a 31 on his first attempt. Go Warriors.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. Next item on our agenda is budget. Mr. Hickey.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have a financial report this month due to it being the end of the year, but we should have both of them ready for next month.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hickey. As we close out this year's financial report for last fiscal year is not available at this time, but we'll have both close out for 22-23 next meeting, and also a current for the first month of the year that'll come out in our August meeting. Next item on our agenda is TLN report. Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the legislation in recess, I have nothing new to report. Just looking for the Summer Law Conference in Gatlinburg on the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Next item on our agenda is pertains to policy 1200, election of school board officers. Policy at the first regular meeting in July of each year, the board shall elect chairman, vice chairman, TLN representative to serve a 1-year term or until a successor is named. So we will go through that process tonight, and this time I would entertain nominations for those for a chairman.
Chairman,
I was gonna say, I'd like to make a motion to Bond as chairman.
Okay, have nomination of Bob Young to serve as chairman.
You need a second?
No, right now we're accepting nominations to serve as chairman for the 23-24 year.
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Jason McDonald for chair.
Okay, I have Jason McDonald.
Mr. Young, I'd like to nominate Dwayne Howard.
I have a nomination for Mr. Dwayne Howard.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, decline my nomination.
Okay, Mr. McDonald has declined his nomination. Have any other nominations for serve chairman for the 23-24 school year?
Make a motion to cease all nominations.
All right, I have a motion to cease all nominations. Do I have a second? Second, motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Ms. Hasty. All right, so, we have, Bob Young and Dwayne Howard been nominated for chairman, so, we will, start go, counterclockwise around the table, so that would start with Mr. Hickey.
Starting with me? My vote for chairman would be for Mr. Bob Young.
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 Howard.
Howard.
Are you gonna vote?
Are you gonna vote?
I think we're gonna cancel each other out. Howard.
Howard, and I would vote Young. All right, so, Bob Young will then serve as chairman for the next school year, 23-24 school year. So this time I entertain motion for nominations for vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Jason McDonald for vice chair.
Nomination for Mr. McDonald. Setting nominations for vice chairman.
Move all nominations cease.
Okay, I have a motion, have a motion, all nominations cease and be adopted by acclamation. So Mr. McDonald served as vice chair. Next I have a I'm sorry, yes sir.
It still takes us a second to vote.
I'm sorry.
To all cease, that's a motion, it still takes a second to vote.
Okay, all right, so got a second. We'll vote for all nominations seats. Do we have approval? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. McDonald still serves as vice chair. All right, next we need a TNL representative to serve one-year term for 2023-2024 school year. So this time I accept nominations for TNL representative.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Dwayne Howard for that. He's done a fantastic job this past year.
That was my motion first.
Okay, I have
Mr. Chairman, what is that?
TNL representatives, they're the one that keeps us updated on legislative activities.
He's the one that has to go through all of that rigmarole at the state capitol.
He's the master of deciphering information. Okay, I have a motion, nomination. I have a motion for all nominations to cease. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. McDonald. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Elections are completed. Next is, item on our agenda is approval for Annual agenda policy 1403 says that beginning of each fiscal year, the board shall adopt an annual planning calendar stating month-by-month actions required by law and those required to carry on board's annual goals and objectives. So in your package, you're presented with an annual agenda for the 23-24 school year. We have listed there items that have been identified in policy. Best we can tell from that, and when throughout the year we should be addressing those. And the example on the policy, on the agenda is the election of officers, approving an annual agenda, and then we'll have a approval of state scoring. Those are items that will come up on monthly basis per policy. So at this time, we're going to be adopting this annual agenda that has been presented. So this time I would entertain a motion for approval for our 23-24 school board annual agenda calendar.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hickey, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Haston. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is new business. We have three items of new business. First item is approval for Mr. Jason McDonald to seek the role as TSBA Vice President for this upcoming term. Mr. McDonald has been serving as a representative in the TSBA program, leadership program for 4 years now. And I think appreciate him doing that. I think it's good exposure for White County for us to have a representative on the board with that organization for the various exposure that it brings to our district. So thank you, Mr. McDonald, for being willing to serve in that manner. However, we as a board need to approve him seeking that role with TSBA. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion for approval of Mr. McDonald to seek the role of TSBA Vice President.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Ms. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Howard. Any discussion?
One thing that I would like to say is I appreciate your confidence in me to be able to serve in that role. I've had an opportunity to serve as the treasurer this past year and have learned a lot. There's a lot of money that goes to the state, a lot of money that goes to the association, and a lot of money goes to our school system. So appreciate the opportunity and the confidence that you guys see in me to be able to serve in that role. And Ms. Sims, I would just ask that if this is approved, I would need to get an email copy of these minutes. Susan, I'll give you an email address. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah, we do appreciate you serving, Mr. McDonald, and representing our county well. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is the approval of district testing schedule. District testing schedule for 23-24 was presented to you in calendar form. In your packet, it identifies the assessment, the grading of class, pursuits, the tentative dates, and how the students and parents reports are being distributed. So, Mr. D, is there anything that you think you need to expand?
No, I want to thank all of our supervisors for being here tonight. First of all, I want to thank our curriculum folks for being here and for working on this schedule. Thank you, Dr. Butcher and Ms. Fresh. This has been posted on our website for some time now, but as you saw on our annual agenda, it needs to be approved at this meeting. So present it to you this evening for approval.
Make a motion to approve that presented.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. McDonald to approve the district testing schedule as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hickey. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our new business, we're going to go back to policy 1404, the revised copy that was presented in your packet. If you scroll back and look at that, this deals with public comment, and 1404, appeals to appearances before the board, and there is, under the statement of public comment, it was the revisions that were, or the parameters that were put into policy for consideration were time limits for public comment of 30 minutes for that being the comment period to be 30 minutes, each speaker given no more than 5 minutes. And then, so that was something that was asked to be discussed a little bit more in detail. So before we approve that on second reading, Mr. Howard, I give you the opportunity to express your thoughts on that. To lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the heading of appearing before the board, and then underneath it, public comment period, the third line reads, the total public comment period shall be for no more than 30 minutes. I think that ought to be stricken from that paragraph and just be left blank. So I'll make a motion that that third sentence right there be removed from that public comment period.
Okay, so Mr. Howard's made a motion that we strike the the language, the total public comment period should be no more than 30 minutes from from policy 1404. Do you want to elaborate on that any more, Mr. Howard?
Well, I understand the pros and cons both ways, and I'm not trying to drag out any meeting. And as we see, that unless there's something really controversial, we don't have that much comments really now. Things are starting to die down. But if something comes up that the public really needs to discuss, I want them to feel like that they have full opportunity to come and be heard. And we already have other policies in place right there for 5 minutes, and if there's more than one person, they need to choose a spokesperson. But if it's really something that people are important want to hear, 2, 3 people, 4 people start to get up, and then all of a sudden 30 minutes is time to shut down, and maybe 15, 20 other people that would just like to say 1 or 2 comments. So I think that could be a negative sign to the community. And I think it'd be a positive sign for our board and public relations is to eliminate that.
Okay. Any other comments about time limits for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree that it doesn't need to be changed or removed. I'm just trying to think through, maybe 30 minutes is not enough. Maybe we need to change that. But if we take it completely out, I mean, what would be the deciding factor if it went on for, if something happened and it's 4 or 5 hours, do we have the ability to just make a motion to cease comments? I just don't want to leave it open-ended. And my other part of that is we've got like metro policies and stuff that go by. Does any of theirs state like a max time for the total comment?
Mr. D, you put that information, just want to flip back to it.
Yeah, so the recommendation from TSBA was to set a time limit, and that's the model policy, and so it's up to the board to decide that. I might suggest that you just add that at the chairman's discretion, that time may be extended, and then that way, if the need arises, then or at the board's discretion, that time could be extended. You could vote at the end of 30 minutes to continue that if the board chose, if there was a topic. But every school board does set a limit, and the idea is that they have the opportunity, the public has the opportunity to reach out to school board members ahead of time. It addresses another policy about how if there's one subject item that group is supposed to nominate somebody to speak for them. And it's just to avoid some of the things that we've seen in the news where some of these school board meetings have gone on for hours and hours. People are addressing the same issue. So it's the board's prerogative. That number can be changed up or down or removed, but that's the reasoning for that suggestion from TSBA.
other discussion? Comments, thoughts? Okay, I'll go around the table. Mr. McDonald, what's your thoughts?
I'm along the same lines as Mr. Hickey is. You know, I don't wanna limit any time, I don't wanna put a time limit on anything, but I don't wanna be here at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, I wanna be respectful of each person sitting at this table and each person in the public to have their chance to speak, and I think that putting time limits on it does that, but I think we all have personal lives that we have to go home to. So I would like to see us have some kind of time limit, for each meeting, but with the chair or the board's discretion to be able to extend that time, as Mr. Lee said.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Howard. Ms. Hasty?
I agree with Jason, I think, and actually, Ms. Marie, as far as having 30 minutes with the board's discretion.
Okay, if you didn't hear, she said, she agreed with, was agreeing towards the recommendation of Mr. D with having a time limit set as per, TSBA's recommendation, but having discretion by either the board or the chairman to extend that. Ms. Valerie, you have any thoughts on that?
I think we need to try to listen to everyone, but I think there needs to be some kind of a time limit. Like Jason, you don't need to be here till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stone?
Like you say, if the board would agree, if it's an important topic, that we would extend it, or if, even we could say an hour with the board's discretion to cease it or revisit it, or, but like you say, if you say 30 minutes and there's 20 people here, somebody's not gonna get to talk, and you have to pick and choose who's gonna talk. So I really think we might extend it maybe an hour, and I don't think we'd ever have to use it, but with the board's discretion to lengthen it or shorten it maybe, I don't know.
Okay, Mr. Howard?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just on the concept of having everybody ought to be able to speak, everyone ought to be able to be heard, and that's what keeps a lot of future animosities down. Okay, so you can say whatever time that you want on this. I think that we've probably experienced this past year some of the most heated discussions this school board's probably ever seen, except for the time they closed Centerview School. And that was a couple hundred people that wanted to speak, and it went on, and that was a special call meeting. And I don't know that there was any time limit given at that time. So we can speculate what if, all we want to. Don't like my motion, you not second it, or you can, somebody amend it to a different time. And I'm not gonna be mad. I'm just telling you right now, for the sake of public relations, people need to be heard.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard, we appreciate that. So, Mr. Howard, if I'm not, you made the motion that we strike that sentence. So, does anybody want to make a motion to amend based on the discussion that we've had?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to be nitpicky here, but my motion requires a second, really, to even discuss.
Okay, that's good point. That's point of order. So.
And then you want to amend it afterwards, you can welcome.
That's good practice, Mr. Howard. Thank you for bringing that to attention. So, I have a motion to strike that. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Okay,
I'll
motion.
second it.
All right, so I have a second. Motion is second. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend his motion to say, to leave that line in, but to add at the end of it, with board discretion on extending that time to whatever time is needed, so that each person is able to get their time in.
All right, so before you make a motion, can we just, let's talk through this for just a second, okay? The policy says total public comment period shall be for no more than 30 minutes. So what I'm hearing from you board members is that you think we should establish a time period but with discretion for extending, for those to be heard. So that particular verbiage in the policy could read, public comment period shall be no more than 30 minutes, but with board motion could be extended to give opportunity for those to speak. Is that what we're trying to get to?
Mr. Chairman, we are elected officials, and I think we owe it to people that elected us. If they come to trouble to come up to this meeting and want to speak, we ought to hear what they have to say. But like you say, nobody wants to be here till 1 o'clock in the morning. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it's got to be read in a way that is not offensive to the public, seeing how they elected us.
All right, Mr. McDonald, you had an amendment.
I think that's what my amendment does, is gives the opportunity for any public comment to be made. But we set a time frame of 30 minutes. But with board approval, we can extend that time so that each person in the room, if they want to be heard, can be heard.
So that would mean no more than 30 minutes, comma, or extended per board approval.
That's correct.
Can I ask how do you get the board approved? Majority vote or chairman's discretion?
So that would
You're gonna know how many you're gonna have on the sign-up sheet. So you're gonna know if it's gonna take 30 minutes or not at the beginning of the meeting. So that could be added to your consent agenda, or it could be approved at the beginning of the meeting, knowing, because we pull that, the public comment, sign-up sheet before the meeting starts, and we know how many we're gonna have. And at 5 minutes, you know, you've got, at 5 minutes per, you can count that up, and if it's over that, then you can add that in the consent agenda at that time.
So 30 minutes would allow for 6 speakers, because everyone is given 5 minutes.
10 show up.
So if you have 10 show up, to Mr. McDonald's point, you look at the sign-up sheet and make a motion to extend at that point in time. So Mr. McDonald has made a motion to amend by leaving the language in and extending it based on board discretion.
I'll second that.
So Mr. Hickey seconds. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay,
Do we have 2 motions and 2?
we've got a motion, to amend, I got a second. And so we've got to vote on the amendment first. So we're voting on the amendment to extend, for the language to be, to include or extended per board approval.
So just so I'm clear, for note-taking purposes, the sentence will be, the comment period may be extended with the approval of the school board, which would mean the school board would vote, not just the chairman.
Correct.
That's correct.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So does that mean if we have 7, we're gonna automatically raise it
Correct.
per board, right?
That's correct.
Bob's just kinda looking at me, he's not doing it.
I mean, cause like right now, we have 0 names on there. If we have 6 show up, that's 30 minutes.
Right,
If the 7th person shows up and signs that, then we would need to approve it before public comment. It would need to go on the agenda, in the consent agenda, to approve that extra time for that 7th person to be able to speak.
okay, I'm just making sure that, are we gonna approve every one of them?
That's what I was
Or
gonna
is there gonna be a time that we don't approve because you're just kinda getting a dark?
No, I think we approve everything.
Or you could fix it to where it's extended per sign. You have to worry about the board for.
I think we're getting too big today.
Yeah, 'cause it's like,
I think the key to that is, like you say, if we have 10 people sign up, we know automatically what the time's gonna be. At that point, we just automatically say public comments time would be this. And you couldn't discriminate and say, okay, we're only gonna do 30 minutes or 35 minutes or whatever. If it's 10 people, we just allot that much time. And then you couldn't, if we had 20 people, is the board gonna say, oh, we can't hear that many people, and then are they gonna turn some of them away?
Well,
So you loose language there.
Let's go back to the public comment period. So policy also says that the delegation or an individual speak, if the speaker is, if they're, let me reread this. So if there was a delegation, then they would select one person. So if there was a group coming in to speak on a matter, they would select one person. That's what our policy says now. So that's in effect. Board does that does say that unless that's otherwise determined by the board. The total public comment period, use the same language, total public comment period be no more than 30 minutes unless otherwise determined by the board. And I think that's, language could be,
Could I make a suggestion?
use you may.
Perhaps we could adopt this policy tonight, since we have no public speakers here tonight, and that gives you all a month to think and work through exactly what we want that to say. You could make it the first agenda item next month, so that no one would be left out, and then you'd be ready, and it would affect, it'd be ready, it'd be in play for next month for whoever may show up to want to discuss at your board meeting. But yeah, I don't think adopting it tonight for the sake of, it sounds like that you all have some thoughts that you need to think through, and so it wouldn't hurt anything in my eyes to adopt it this evening and get it in play, and then you could come back next month and have and iron it out after you have had time to really think it through. But just my suggestion.
All right, let's try to.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment on that. The way that reads, okay, if there's a topic or a subject, somebody comes in, they may be 2 people that wants to talk on a subject, they may not even know each other. So, to elect someone, they can't elect somebody if they don't, know that's gonna be talking about maybe some of the same issues. So, that language right there, I'm not really in favor of, because, if you had a group of 20 and they was all in a group and, all together, I can see that, but, somebody may come in with an issue like some of these books or something that may not even know the other person, and they may have something they want to say, as well as the other person have something, they may have totally different opinions.
Mr. Chairman, I make a comment. This is getting really complicated. What my concept was, we've made great strides this past year to open this board up to hear people's comments, and I think anything complicated like this is just gonna still look at people are gonna still look at us and say, hey, they still don't want to hear from you. It was just a simple request to drop it out. If Mr. McDonald wants to withdraw his amendment, I'll withdraw my motion. We'll think about it for a month. but if it stays the way it is, we'll have to have a vote.
So moved.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion too.
Okay.
But I would request that this be on the next month's agenda. And, just once again, board, my whole concept behind this was to show the public that we're here to listen. Now, how you gonna put that in wording if you put a time limit on it?
So,
I'm gonna say this, this board is here to listen, and I don't know of a time that we've never not listened to the public. So I would pull my motion back, my amendment back.
okay, so, any objections to those amendments and motions being withdrawn?
No, and I agree with what both of them are saying. The reason it's in there is for the TSBA, law team has really requested that to be in there, not so we don't listen to the public. It's for legality issues to set that limit. It's not that we can't extend it or that we can't hear, but if you don't put something there, then it's open-ended, and people abuse open-ended things with no laws. You could have, a mass of people come in and disrupt closing of a board meeting if you don't put something that ends it. So that's why TSBA has put that in there for us to set something. It has to be some way to end.
So, board members, and those, the motion, withdrawn. Let's do this. Bring this up be prepared when we come to committee next week to come with ideas of how we might address this. Written out in language, if you want to send it to me prior to that, and I'll put it together on a sheet and we can have it and look at the various options so we can come to consensus of what we might want to do. At the end of the day, we want the public to be able to reach out to us. The public should reach out to us based by email or other methods of contacting. We are public servants for our representative district. We want to be heard. We want to give them the opportunity to be heard here as well. So just be prepared when we come to that, our next meeting. We'll bring that up in committee. All right, with that item, we'll move on to old business. Or any old business? No old business on our agenda. Next item is chairman's comments. Our regular board meeting, next regular board meeting will be August 10th, and that will be back here at the central office at 6 o'clock. Committee meeting at 5. And a reminder that the TSBA Summer Law Conference will be at Gatlinburg this coming next week. That'll be July 21st and 22nd. Please see Mr. D regarding your accommodations information. So at this time, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying good evening.
Good evening.